So, this is the soundtrack to A Hard Day's Night, which came out before the movie did. Came out 60 years ago in June of 1964. Now, at this point, now if you listen to the first British Beatles album, Please Please Me, it looks like they had not quite found their sound they were looking for it, but by 1964 they had found it. So most of their stuff from 1964 is in pretty much the same style. It crystallized here, and so I made a movie that was a portrayal of what it's like to be on tour, except it was much nicer in the movie than it probably was in real life to go through that. And so they put out a soundtrack, and the soundtrack was different in the UK than it was in America, and the American soundtrack came out first. This is it. So let's go through what's on here. All right. So it starts off with the title track, A Hard Day's Night. Now this one and I Love Her and Hard Day's Night were the only songs that made it on the Red album for some reason. So I listened to all the different versions I had in preparation for making this, and the version that the version of this soundtrack I've got is the mono version. It says high fidelity, but it's the mono version. And to me, the version on the old Red album I've got is in mono, just like this. The stereo version of this album was duotronic. It was fake stereo, made from the mono master, and so it wasn't. It's better off getting the mono version. The mono version sounds pretty good. So I had several versions. I listened with earbuds. I listened to the old CD version and the new Red Album version, and the new Red Album version is much better than the CD version, which is in stereo. But on my old Red Album, it's in mono. So there's that. So yeah, this album has all the tracks except She Loves You that were in the movie. So the next one is Tell Me Why. Hard Day's Night is sung by John and Paul. Tell Me Why's lead vocal is John. They all sing harmony, even when one person's doing the lead for the most part. That's followed by, I even sing the times, A Hard Day's Night, and Tell Me Why. And then the next one is one that was written for the movie, but it was cut from the movie at the last moment. It's I'll Cry Instead. Lead vocal is John. Now this is followed by an instrumental written by George Martin, or arranged by George Martin. It's to the tune of I Should Have Known Better. And that's followed by a George Harrison singing I'm Happy Just to Dance With You. And then an instrumental version of And I Love Her. Now these instrumental versions were in true stereo on the stereo version of this album, but they're not included in the CDs that are out, so these have become rarities. Okay, so let's go to side 2. So we'll just flip this over so you can see what's on the back. See, it says high stereo, high fidelity, but monaural sound, mono. All right, so side 2 begins with I Should Have Known Better, which was also on Hey Jude. And I don't know why they picked this instead of lots of other things that were not available on an album when they made that compilation. But that's, the lead vocal is John. The next one, it's credited as lead vocal John and Paul, but it sounds mostly John to me, with harmony by Paul. It's If I Fell, and that is followed by And I Love Her, which is Paul. Now, I had a lot of versions to listen to this. There was the CD version, there was the version of the Beatles Rarity, there was the version on the old Red Album, and the version on the new Red Album. Now, and this one. Now, so this one is in mono, because the whole album's in mono. The version on the Red Album is in stereo, as is the version on the British CD. And the version on the new Red Album is a big improvement over it. There's an instrument, it's a percussion instrument of a round wooden block, and you click them together and it makes a clicking sound, and Paul used it in his solo work, but it's very prominent in the older versions of this song, but in the new Red Album version it's not so prominent, and I like that. Okay, so the next track is an instrumental version of This Boy, which is credited as Ringo's theme. And this is because there's a non-talking scene where Ringo's wandering around, having bad stuff happen to him, and this instrumental is playing in the background. And this was actually issued as a single. Okay, so next track is Can't Buy Me Love, which is on Hey Jude. Again, it pushed off things like Misery, which were not in print. And this one is not one of my favorites for some reason, though I think it would make a really good jazz song. But, yeah. And, oh, you know what, I think this is on the Red Album too. Just double check that real quick. Oh yes, it's on side 1 of the Red Album. And then finally there's an instrumental version of A Hard Day's Night. And that's the American version of A Hard Day's Night soundtrack. You'll notice the record is not Capitol, it's United Artists. So, yeah, so mono, it sounds good. They sound good in mono. Because I tend to like the later Beatles stuff better, I didn't think I would like mono so much, but it sounds fine in mono. But those instrumental tracks, you know, if they made a new Beatles Rarity, those would go on there because they're not on any of the CDs issued right now, except I believe at some point all the American albums were issued on CD very briefly, and with both mono and stereo mixes of them. And yeah, as I said, the Red Album, the old Red Album, has a stereo mix of And I Love Her, which it was false stereo back then when it first came out. So anyway, this is all the songs except She Loves You from A Hard Day's Night, plus one song that was supposed to be on it but wasn't. And it's included, I'll Cry Instead. So, yeah, so A Hard Day's Night, an original motion picture soundtrack. Check it out.